The wind howled across the frozen wastes of eastern Finland like a banshee unleashed, whipping snow into blinding veils that stung like needles against exposed flesh. It was December 7, 1939, and the first flakes of what would become the Winter War's merciless blizzard had begun to fall on the Raate Road, a narrow logging track snaking through the pine-choked forests of Kainuu province. Captain Matti Koskela, a wiry 32-year-old veteran of the Spanish Civil War with eyes like chipped flint, crouched in a makeshift snow trench, his Mosin-Nagant M2830 rifle propped against the berm, its 7.62 bolt oiled against the degrees C chill. Koskela commanded Airlinen Paddle Juna 27, Detachment 27, a scratch force of 4,000 Finnish reservists, farmers, loggers, and schoolteachers turned ski troops, tasked with holding the remote crossroads of Suomussalmi against the Red Army's tide. The Soviets, 450,000 strong under Marshal Klement Voroshilov, had rolled over the Mannerheim line's flanks 3 days prior, their T-26 tanks and human waves aiming to sever Finland from Sweden in a week's liberation. Koskela adjusted his white camouflage smock, the fabric crusted with rime, and peered through binoculars at the tree line 500 meters south. The road, pocked with craters from Finnish 81 mortars, stretched like a scar through the taiga, flanked by 20-meter pines bowed under snow. "Nothing yet," he murmured to his adjutant, Lieutenant Eero Siilasvuo, a lanky officer from Oulu with a mustache frozen stiff. Siilasvuo, who'd penned tactical manuals on Motti encirclement before the war, nodded, his Suomi KP-31 submachine gun slung across his back. Scouts report Ivan's 163rd Division advancing, trucks, artillery, maybe 10,000. No tanks in this muck. The Finns, outnumbered 10-1 overall, relied on mobility, white-clad ghosts on skis, Molotov cocktails for armor, and the forests as allies. Stalin's purges had gutted the Red Army's officer corps, leaving green conscripts to freeze in summer tunics. Koskela's men, JR 27, 27th Separate Battalion under his command, were the thin blue line, 1,200 riflemen in 2 battalions, plus a company of sappers and the 13th Jäger Company, elite skiers who'd harried Bolsheviks in 18. Private Heikki Mäkinen, a 22-year-old reindeer herder from Lapland with hands calloused from lassos, stamped snow from his boots beside a Suomi gun pit, the 9 SMGs 71-round drum mag a comforting weight. Hickey's squad, 10 souls crammed in a foxhole ringed by tripwires and Finnish saunas, Molotovs in bottles, shared a smoke rolled from birch bark, the tobacco scarce as mercy. "Heard the Ruskies got planes," Hickey grunted to his loader, a wiry teen named Toivo from Helsinki's slums. "Bomb us like Guernica," Koskela, overhearing from the CP, a lean-to of pine boughs, shot back. "Planes need runways, this snows our sky." The war's spark had ignited November 30, Soviet artillery thundering across the border, 25 divisions smashing Finland's 9, the Red Air Force bombing Helsinki streets. Mannerheim's 300,000 held the isthmus, but the north was a void. Suomussalmi, 200 km from Oulu, the gateway to Tornio and Sweden's iron ore. Koskela's detachment, rushed from reserve, arrived December 5 amid blizzards that buried skis waist-deep. They mined the road with 150 kg satchel charges, felled trees for abattis, and dug Panzerirovko trenches, zigzag foxholes invisible under snow. Intel from reconnaissance flights, antiquated Fokkers buzzing low, warned of the 163rd Rifle Division under Komdiv Divisional Commander Pavel Kurichkin, 11,000 Siberian conscripts, 30 Ba-20 armored cars, 122 howitzers, and trucks bogged in the drifts. Dusk fell early, the aurora borealis painting the sky green as the first probe slithered in. Hickey's foxhole overlooked a curve in the Raate, the road a white ribbon flanked by 10-foot drifts. "Movement, trucks," he hissed, the Suomi's iron sights framing shadows 300 meters out. Soviet headlights pierced the gloom, convoy of 20 GAZA lorries, their canvas flapping, followed by BA-20s with 7.62 DTMGs. The Finns waited, breaths fogging, until the lead truck hit the abattis crash, axle snapping. Fire! Koskela's signal rocket arced red. Molotov sailed from the trees, bottles shattering on hoods in blooms of flame. Gasoline ignited tires, drivers bailing into snow. Hickey Suomi chattered. 600 RPM bursts stitching the cabs, 9mm rounds punching canvas, screams mingling with engine coughs. Soviet MGs answered, DTs barking from the BAs, but the cars slewed in drifts, guns traversing blind. Koskela's Mosin cracked deliberate, bolt-action precision dropping a gunner at 400 meters, the 7.62 X-53R slug tumbling on impact. Siilasvuo's men flanked on skis, white ghosts gliding silent, grenades lobbing into troop compartments, frags bursting in red mist. The convoy halted in flames, 15 trucks ablaze, 100 Reds dead or fleeing into woods. Survivors counterattacked. A company from the 662nd Regiment charging with bayonets fixed on Mosin nagants, their quilted telegricas no match for the cold. Finnish Lottie L-39s, semi-auto 20 AT rifles barked from ridges, tungsten rounds punching armored cars at 500 meters, turrets flying. Hickey squad held the curve, Suomi drums emptying in controlled bursts, Toivo reloaded under fire, hands numb but sure. A Soviet lieutenant, fur hat askew, rallied his men with a nagant revolver barking, until Koskela's shot cored him at 200 meters. By midnight the probe shattered, 200 Soviet casualties, 3 BAs smoking, the road a pyre lighting the snow. Finnish losses, 5 wounded, frostbite claiming more. Koskela gathered his officers in the CP, a kerosene lamp flickering on maps marked with red pins. Kurachkin's committed main force tomorrow. We Motti them, cut the head, let the body freeze. Siilasvuo nodded, plotting ski routes around the flanks. Rots our noose, pull tight at dawn. Hickey's squad rotated to a forward outpost, foxholes deepened with pine branches for windbreaks, sentries posted in pairs. The cold was the true foe, toes blackening in felt boots, rifles freezing shut without constant oiling. Hickey shared his last sausage with Toivo, the meat tough as boot leather. Ma's letters say Helsinki's bombed, women fighting in the streets. Toivo, city-born and soft, shivered. We'll hold, Hickey, for the sauna and vodka. Laughter died quick as flares popped south, Soviet scouts probing the dark. Dawn December 8 brought the hammer. The 163rd's vanguard, 2 regiments, 5,000 strong, lumbered up the Raate in columns, trucks chained to tanks T-26s, their 45 guns questing, howitzers towed by tractors. Voroshilov's doctrine, massed infantry overwhelming fascist dwarves, faltered in the drifts, vehicles bogging axle-deep, crews cursing in Russian. Koskela's mortars opened at 600, 81 rounds air bursting over the column, shrapnel scything like reaper's teeth. Hickey Suomi joined the chorus. Bursts pinning a platoon mid-disembark, Molotovs arced from trees, igniting fuel tanks in geysers of fire. The Soviets pressed, NKVD commissars driving with pistols, nagants cracking at backs, but the Finns melted away on skis, reforming for ambushes. Siilasvuo's Yegers hit the tail, white phantoms gliding parallel, grenades lobbing into cabs, Lotties punching tracks. A T-26 slewed into Hickey's line of sight. He grabbed a Molotov from the cache, hurling it true, the bottle shattered on the turret, flames whooshing down the hatch. The tank halted, crew bailing into snow, met by Garins and Suomi fire. By noon, the vanguard stalled, 500 Reds down, 10 vehicles burning, the road a charnel of frozen bodies. Kurachkin radioed Moscow for reinforcements. The 44th Motorized Division under Divisional Commander Ivan N. Habarov, 15,000 with 100 trucks and artillery. Koskela, in his CP, traced the map. 2 divisions now Motti both. Flank north to Haukila, cut the artery. The Finns withdrew to prepared lines, skis whispering over crust, leaving Kokus, snipers in trees to pick stragglers. Hickey's squad reached the fallback, digging fresh positions amid boulders, the cold gnawing deeper. Frostbite claimed Toivo's fingers that night. Books know the Finnish medic, a stoic Laplander named Aino, amputating with vodka and saw. "Hold fast, Poika," Aino grunted, binding the stumps. Hickey watched the aurora, the gare end cold in his lap. The shadows lengthened, the snow a white death waiting. The aurora's ghostly veils danced overhead like spectral banners as Captain Matti Koskela trudged the snow-crusted trail north of the Raate Road, his skis whispering over the crust at dawn on December 9, 1939. The temperature had plunged to minus 35 degrees C overnight, turning breath to ice crystals and rifles to frozen burdens. But Koskela's Airlinen paddle Juna 27 moved like wraiths. 200 white-clad phantoms gliding on waxed hickory, their packs light with rye crisp bread, dried reindeer, and the bare essentials for the Motti. The encirclement, Siilasvuo's brainchild refined from Civil War skirmishes, was no grand maneuver but a surgeon's cut. Sever the Soviet artery at Haukila, 10 kilometers north, isolating the 163rd Rifle Division's vanguard before Kurichkin's main body could consolidate. Koskela's battalion, IIJR-27, 600 strong, flanked east, while the 13th Yeger Company under Illikersanti Master Sergeant Arn Judelainen curved west, their Lottie L-39s slung for anti-armor work. Private Heikki Mekkonen, Hickey to his mates, kicked free of his skis at the Haukila rise, the Mosin-Nagant M2830 a familiar weight in numb hands. The road below, a frozen vein through the pines, teemed with the Soviet Serpent. The 163rd, 662nd, and 663rd Regiments, 5,000 conscripts in inadequate telegricas, trudging beside bogged GAZ trucks and towed 76.2 Mzi S3 guns, their commissars prodding with PPSH-41. Hickey's squad, Toivo nursing bandaged fingers, the wiry teen from Helsinki now with a Suomi KP-31 as his second weapon, dug hasty positions in the drifts, pine boughs dragged for windbreaks. "Ivan strung out like sausage," Hickey whispered, the Suomi's drum mag clicking home. Toivo nodded, eyes wide in the half-light. "No skis, no sense. They'll freeze before they fight." Koskela signaled from the CP, a snow cave hollowed under a boulder, his field phone crackling to Siilasvuo at Suomussalmi. II battalion in position, Haukila secured. Ivan's column 5 kilometers long, artillery at rear. Siilasvuo's reply buzzed faint. "Strike at 800 mortars first, then close the jaws. Yegers on the tail." The plan was surgical. 81 KRH/40 mortars from the 27th Battery air bursting over the stragglers, ski troops pinching the flanks to herd them into kill zones, and cuckoos, snipers like Simo Heihe, the White Death himself, though Koskela's men were ghosts in their own right, picking officers from afar. The hammer fell at 800 sharp. Koskela's mortars whooshed from concealed pits 2 kilometers south, 81 rounds arcing high before plunging into the column's gut, airbursts shredding trucks with white-hot shrapnel, horses bolting in panic, men scattering into drifts. Screams pierced the wind, Russian curses mingling with the crump of impacts. Hickey Suomi opened seconds later, 600 RPM bursts raking a platoon disembarking from a lorry, 9mm rounds punching quilted jackets, bodies tumbling into red snow. "Pin 'em, Toivo, reload," Hickey barked, the drums clatter a rhythm of death. Toivo slapped a fresh 71-rounder home, the SMG cycling hot. Soviet MGs answered. Maxim PM-1910's water-cooled beasts chattering from the rear, 7.62 X-54R tracers lancing the rise like fireflies in hell. A burst clipped the berm near Hickey, snow erupting. He rolled, firing blind into the smoke. Koskela's Mosin cracked deliberate from the ridge, bolt cycling with a metallic snick, dropping a commissar mid-rally, the Nagant revolver clattering from frozen fingers. The 163rd faltered, their human wave doctrine crumbling in the white void. No air support Finnish Fokkers had shredded the SBs at Lake Ladoga, no tanks, T-26s mired in drifts, just green Siberians herded like sheep. Judalanen's Jägers struck the tail at 8:30, 200 ski troops gliding from the west, white smocks blending with the storm, grenades lobbing into gun limbers, frags bursting in geysers of limbs and brass. A Ba-20 armored car slewed to engage, its 7.6 Tomb DT chattering. A Lottie answered from 400 meters, the 20 tungsten round punching the radiator in a spray of steam and oil. The car halted, crew bailing into ski fire, Suomis and Mossens reaping a toll of 50 in minutes. The Jägers melted back, skis carrying them to new angles, the Motti's jaws clamping tight. By noon, the encirclement held. The 163rd's vanguard, 3000, trapped in a 5-kilometer pocket at Haukila, faced annihilation, their howitzers silenced by Finnish 15 Bofors AT guns firing over open sights. Kurichkin, in his forward CP at the Raate schoolhouse, radioed 9th Army HQ in Petrozavodsk. Flanked, request airstrike. But Voroshilov's DB-3 bombers, iced on runways, stayed grounded. Stalin's purges had left the VVS a blunt instrument. Hickey's squad rotated to the northern pinch, foxholes deepened with entrenching tools, tripwires laced with teller mines scavenged from the border. The cold was merciless, eyelids freezing shut, triggers iced until breath warm. Toivo's stumps throbbed, Aino the medic doozing him with strong Finnish coffee laced with cognac from Mannerheim stores. Hold, Poika, Aino grunted, binding fresh felt. Hickey shared his last sausage, the meat frozen brittle. Ruskies charge tomorrow, heard singing vodka songs. Laughter rasped, dying as flares popped south, illuminating the Soviet buildup. The 44th Motorized Division's vanguard rumbling up the Raate, 15,000 fresh troops under Habarov, 100 trucks grinding through drifts, towed 122 howitzers promising hell. Koskela gathered his lieutenants in the snow cave. Lamp shadows dancing on frost-laced walls. 44th reinforces double the meat. We Motti them too, hit the head at dawn, let the body rot. Siilasvuo's orders crackled. III battalion to Talvisodan cover the flank. No retreat, Finland stands. The captain distributed rations, rye loaves, tinned reindeer, and the last ammo crates, 7, 62 X53R clips for Mossens, 9 for Suomis. For the sauna, Koskela toasted, the men's eyes steel in the gloom. Night deepened the noose. Soviet probes slithered north, scouts in white sheets mimicking the Finns but stumbling on skis. Hickey's outpost ambushed one, Suomi bursts dropping 3 at 50 meters, the survivors fleeing with cries of Belai Smrti, white deaths. Koskela's snipers claimed 20 that night, Hayes' legend growing with each kill, though the White Death himself patrolled Ladoga's shores. The encircled 163rd huddled around bonfires, commissars executing stragglers to stem desertions, 10 shot by dawn, their bodies stiffening in the snow. December 10 brought the bear's roar. Habarov's 44th slammed the Raate at 400, trucks and half-tracks churning the road, infantry in waves behind. Koskela's mortars greeted them, 81 rounds cratering the van, horses bolting from caissons, guns overturning in drifts. Hickey Suomi chattered from the rise, bursts pinning a company mid-deploy. Toivo's Molotov sailed true, igniting a GAZ in flames that lit the charge. Soviet DP-28 light MGs answered, belt-fed 7.62s raking the pines, but the Finns were ghosts, firing, fatting on skis, reforming. The 44th pressed, Habarov's commissars driving with whips and pistols, but the Motti bit. Siilasvuo's III battalion hit the flank at Palakangas, 300 skis troops encircling a battalion in hours, grenades and bayonets in the drifts, 400 Reds down. Koskela's II pinched the head, Jägers gliding parallel, Lotties punching trucks at 300 meters, the 20 rounds eviscerating cabs. A Soviet major, fur cap askew, rallied with a Taker of TT-33 barking, until a Finnish sniper's Mosin cored him at 600 meters. By dusk, the 44th's nose bloodied. 800 casualties, 20 vehicles burning the road to Charnel. Kurichkin fused the columns, 163rd and 44th merging into a 10-kilometer serpent on the Raate. But the noose held, Finns mining the flanks, snipers picking commissars like ticks. Hickey's squad pulled back to the WWII line, foxholes ringed by abatis of felled pines. Frostbite gnawed. Aino amputated Toivo's ear that night, the teen biting a glove through the pain. For Finland, Hickey whispered, the Suomi cold in his lap. The bear thrashed, but the jaws tightened, the white death waiting in the snow. The new year dawned blood-red over the Raate Road on January 1, 1940, the aurora's glow yielding to a pallid sun that barely warmed the degrees C void. Captain Matti Koskela stamped frost from his skis at the forward observation post on Hill 16. The tactical map spread on a snow shovel, red pins marking the noose's bite. The Motti had tightened like a garrote. Detachment 27's 4,000 Finns, now 3,800 after frost and fire, had severed the 163rd Division's 11,000 at Haukila, isolating Kurichkin's vanguard in a 5-kilometer kill sack, while Habarov's 44th motorized, 15,000 fresh from Leningrad, lurked south, their trucks a frozen serpent on the road. Koskela's men, ghosts in white, held the flanks, II Battalion pinching east, the 13th Yegers west, mortars zeroed on the drifts. Ivan's desperate expect breakout, he told Siilasvuo over the field phone, the line crackling with static. Siilasvuo at Suomussalmi schoolhouse CP replied crisp, reinforcements inbound, JR-16 from Kajani. Motti the 44th tomorrow, let the 163rd rot. Private Heikki Mekkonen Hickey shivered in a snow cave on the eastern cordon, his Mosin nagging a frozen bar across his lap. The bolt worked loose with spit every hour to fend the ice. Toivo, the teen loader with bandaged stumps, huddled beside him. The Suomi KP-31 clutched like a talisman, its drum mag half full of precious 9. Aino the medic snored fitfully, his satchel open to reveal the last morphine syrettes and sulfa packets, supplies thinner than the gruel of barley porridge doled from field kitchens. Hickey's squad, down to 6 after a probe's toll, ringed the cave with tripwires and Finnish candles, pine logs daubed with tar ready to blaze diversions. Heard the Ruskies got radios now calling for planes, Toivo whispered, breath fogging. Hickey snorted, rubbing life into his toes. Planes need sky. This blizzard's our blanket. The trapped 163rd thrashed in the sack. Kurichkin, promoted to Major General in Moscow's panic, ordered probes north, companies charging blind into the drifts, commissars at their heels with nagants drawn. At 600 the roar began, Soviet bugles wailing from the south, a battalion from the 662nd Regiment surging the cordon, bayonets fixed on Mosin nagants, their telegricas stiff with frost. Hickey's outpost woke to the crunch of boots, shadows lurching from the white. Fire, hold the line, he barked, the Mosin cracking deliberate. Bolt back, 7.62x53R chambered, crack. A Soviet sergeant crumpling mid-shout, the slug exiting in a spray of red vapor. Toivo Suomi joined, the 71-round drum emptying in a 600 RPM storm, 9mm rounds stitching the charge, bodies piling like cordwood in the drifts. Aino's bolt action barked beside, the medic's shot felling a commissar waving a red banner. Soviet DPs chattered back, light MGs belt-fed from tripods, 7.62 tracers lancing the rise. A burst clipped the cave mouth, snow erupting. Hickey rolled, reloading the Mosin, stripper clip slapped home, bolt forward, firing over the berm. 2 down, the Finns' range and camouflage turning the assault to slaughter. The charge faltered 100 meters short, survivors diving into drifts, commissars executing the hesitant with Taker of cracks. Koskela watched from Hill 16, his binoculars framing the route. 200 Reds down, the road a charnel of frozen limbs and abandoned PPSHs. Mortars airburst the stragglers, he ordered. The KRH-40 tubes whooshed from pits 1 kilometer back, 81 rounds detonating 20 meters up, shrapnel raining like iron hail, scything the retreat. Judalanen's Yegers exploited. 200 skis troops gliding from the west, white smocks blending, grenades lobbing into foxholes, frags bursting in muffled thumps, screams muffled by snow. A Soviet Maxim, water jacket steaming in the cold, chattered defiance. A Lottie answered from 300 meters, the 20 tungsten round vaporizing the gunner in a pink mist. By noon the probe shattered, Kurachkin's battalion mauled, 400 casualties for 20 Finnish. The encircled 163rd huddled in their positions, shallow scrapes around bonfires of felled pines, commissars rationing vodka to stem desertions. Soviet radios begged Leningrad, flanked, artillery short, frostbite 30%, request retreat. But Voroshilov, Stalin's puppet, forbade it, not one step back, sealing the bear's fate. Hickey's squad rotated south to the Raate Pinch. Skis carrying them 5 kilometers under the blizzard's lash, the wind a knife flaying exposed skin. They reached the cordon at dusk, digging into a birch thicket, the tree's white bark a mirror to their smocks. Ino brewed calf over a bayonet-stuck can, the strong black laced with cognac from a captured flask. Toivo's fever break-in, he reported, the teen's cheeks flushed but eyes clear. Hickey nodded, cleaning the mossin by feel, the bore swabbed with birch oil, the bolt cycled smooth. 44th Common tomorrow, Habarov's motorized. Trucks'll bog but numbers bite. January 3 fused the jaws. Habarov's 44th slammed the Raate at 500, 8,000 infantry in the van. 100 GAZ trucks churning snow, towed 122 howitzers promising barrage. Koskela's scouts, ski patrols with binoculars signaled the head. Column 8 kilometers, artillery rear. The Finns struck preemptive. Mortars cratering the lead, 81 airbursts shredding the cab, Molotovs arced from trees, igniting fuel tanks in chains of fire. Hickey's outpost, 2 kilometers in, waited as the serpent slithered past, trucks bogging, infantry marching beside, commissars prodding with whips. At 700 the Motti bit. Siilasvuo's III battalion hit the tail at Palakangas, 400 skis troops encircling a regiment, grenades and bayonets in the drifts, Lotties punching half-tracks at 200 meters. The 44th recoiled, Habarov radioing fury, flanked Soviet aviation. But the skis were leaden, DB-3s grounded by blizzards. Koskela's II closed the head. Yegers gliding parallel, Suomi's chattering from flanks, the 9 storm pinning companies mid-road. A Soviet major rallied with a Maxim barking, until a sniper's mossin cored him at 500 meters, the White Death's shadow long. Hickey's squad ambushed a platoon straggling the ditch. Suomi bursts dropping 8, Toivo's Molotov igniting a backpack radio in flames. Ino's shot felled a commissar mid-execution, Nagant razed to a deserter's head. The platoon scattered into woods, commissars shooting 5 in the back, the crack of Tokarev echoing. By dusk the 44th nose bloodied. 1,000 down, 30 vehicles burning, Habarov fusing with Kurachkin, 25,000 trapped in a 10-kilometer sack, supplies cut, the cold their jailer. Kurachkin ordered breakout January 5. The fused divisions charging north in echelon, commissars at the van, howitzers firing over open sights. Koskela's line buckled but held, mortars cratering the road, airbursts scything ranks. Hickey's mossin thundered, 5 kills, the bolt a blur. Toivo's Suomi emptied 2 drums, the 9 hail tumbling waves. Soviet DPs raked the rise, belts jamming in cold. Lotties answered, 20 rounds eviscerating guns. The charge stalled 300 meters short, 2,000 Reds down, commissars executing 100 cowards. January 7 sealed the roar. Habarov's last push, armored cars and infantry, shattered by Siilasvuo's counter Motti. Yegers pinching flanks, mortars burying columns. Hickey's squad mopped a pocket, 50 Soviets in a birch stand, hands up or bayonets drawn. 1 charged, mossin fixed, Hickey parried, buttstroke cracking skull. The rest surrendered, commissars shot by their own, bodies stiff. Koskela tallied the toll: 23,000 Soviet dead or captured, 27 guns, 230 trucks, Finnish losses, 400. The bear lay gutted, the road a frozen tomb. Hickey stared at the dawn, the Garand cold. The white death had roared and won. The thaw crept in like a thief in the night on January 8, 1940. The iron grip of the degrees C frost yielding to a deceptive degrees C that turned the Raate Road's drifts to treacherous slush, sucking at skis and boots like quicksand. Captain Matti Koskela stood atop Hill 16's ridge, his Mosin Nagant slung across his parka, binoculars framing the frozen charnel below. The Soviet Serpent, fused remnants of the 163rd and 44th Divisions, 20,000 souls crammed into a 8-kilometer kill sack, thrashed in its death throes, bonfires sputtering in the mud, commissars' executions a staccato of Tokarev cracks echoing through the pines. Koskela's Detachment 27 down to 3,500 after the Mahdi's toll, frostbite, wounds, and the odd sniper's bullet, held the noose with grim resolve. II Battalion East, Yegers West, mortars zeroed on the artery. Siilasvuo's voice crackled from Suomussalmi. JR-16 reinforces tomorrow, 4,000 fresh. Finish the bear, Mannerheim demands total. Koskela lowered the glasses, rubbing beard frost from his mustache, the weight of 400 dead Finns heavy as the snow. The encirclement had cost the Reds 12,000 already, bodies stiff in drifts, trucks overturned like beetle husks, but the trapped divisions clawed for life. Kurachkin and Habarov fusing commands, their radios begging Leningrad for air or armor, Voroshilov's reply a curt, hold or die. The Finns, Mannerheim's Sisu, incarnate, stubborn will forged in the Civil War's fires, pressed the thaw's gift. Slush bogging Soviet trucks, skis gliding free, the white death's cloak thinning to reveal ghosts in gray. Private Heikki Mekkonen Hickey spat blood-flecked phlegm into the mud of his forward outpost on the eastern cordon, the Mosin Nagant a numb extension of his arm, its bolt worked loose every hour against the creeping damp. Toivo, the teen with bandaged stumps and a fever that came and went like auroras, huddled beside him in the snow cave. The Suomi KP-31 clutched to his chest, its drum mag a lifeline. Aino the medic brewed thin calf over a spirit stove, fuel scavenged from a downed bomber, the black brew laced with the last cognac drops. Fever's break-in poika, Aino grunted, checking Toivo's brow. Hickey nodded, his own shoulder wound from a DP burst throbbing under Aino's field dressing, sulfa powder gritty against skin. The squad, down to 5 after a probe claimed the loader, ringed the cave with abatis of felled birches, tripwires laced with improvised Finnish sausages, sausage casings packed with nails and gunpowder. Ruski singin' again, Toivo whispered, ears straining to the south where Soviet voices rose in ragged choruses. Katyusha, the folk tune twisted to war. Hickey snorted, sighting the Mosin down the drift. Vodka lullabies commissars shootin' the sober. Thaw's our friend, their boots sink, ours glide. The encircled Reds, 25,000 now in the sack, faced annihilation. Supplies cut since December 31, horses slaughtered for meat, commissars rationing bullets for executions over bread. Desertions swelled, Siberians slipping north into Sweden's rumor, NKVD firing squads claiming 200 nightly. January 9 brought the thaw's first roar. Kurachkin's desperate breakout, 3,000 from the 663rd Regiment charging east in echelon, commissars at the van with PPSH drums rattling, howitzers firing blind over the treetops. Koskela's line buckled under the weight, Soviet DPs chattering from the flanks, 7.62 X-54R belts searing the air. A burst clipped Hill 16's berm, shrapnel whickering past Koskela's ear. Mortars, danger close, he bellowed into the field phone. The KRH-40 tubes answered from 500 meters back. 81 rounds plunging short, airbursts 10 meters up, shrapnel raining like sleet on the charge. Hickey's outpost 200 meters in woke to the crunch, shadows lurching from the slush. Fire hold, he roared, the Mosin thundering, bolt back, crack. A Soviet sergeant crumpling, the slug exiting in frozen spray. Toivo Suomi joined, the 71-round drum emptying in a blizzard of 9 rounds punching telegrikas, bodies piling in the mud like cordwood. Aino's bolt action barked beside, the medic's shot felling a commissar mid-whip crack on a conscript. Soviet Nagants answered, revolver pops lost in the din, but the Finns' range and cover turned the wave to chum. Lottie L-39s from the Yegers punching half-tracks at 300 meters, 20 tungsten eviscerating cabs. The charge stalled 100 meters short, 500 Reds down, commissars executing 50 cowards in the retreat. The Tokarevs bark a grim punctuation. Koskela counterpinched at 1,000. Siilasvuo's III battalion, reinforced by JR-16's vanguard, 1000 skis troops from Kajani, gliding from the north, white smocks blending with the slush melt. Grenades lobbed into the flanks, frags bursting in muffled thumps, screams muffled by mud. Suomis chattered from the pines, 9 hail tumbling ranks. A Soviet major rallied with a Maxim chattering, belt-fed fury, but a Yeger sniper's Mosin cored him at 400 meters, the White Death's tally climbing unseen. By noon, the breakout shattered. 1,200 Soviet casualties, the sack tighter, Habarov fusing the remnants. Now 22,007 kilometers, supplies nil, the thaw drowning their wounded in meltwater. Hickey squad mopped the eastern pocket that afternoon, skis carrying them into a birch stand where 200 Reds huddled around a sputtering fire, commissar's body stiff from friendly fire. Kamerad, surrender, Hickey called in broken Russian, the Mosin lowered but ready. A lieutenant emerged, hands high, his nagant tossed into the slush. No more take us. The squad herded 150, the prisoners marching south under guard, their telegrikas ragged, eyes haunted by the white ghosts. One Siberian, frostbitten toes black, clutched a photo of a wife. Home, Siberia. Hickey pressed a crisp bread into his palm. Go home, brother, war's folly. January 12 fused the thaw's vengeance. Habarov's final lunge, 5000 charging the western cordon, howitzers firing over open sights, 122 rounds cratering the rise. Koskela's line reeled. A shell airburst 20 meters up, shrapnel scything a platoon, 10 down, screams piercing the gale. Hold Yeger's flank, Koskela roared, his Mosin dropping a gunner at 300 meters. Judalanen's 200 skis troops struck from the woods. Grenades lobbing into the van, Suomi's hosing the flanks, the 9 storm breaking the wave. Hickey's outpost, skis ready for evasion, fired from the drift. Mosin cracks deliberate, Toivo Suomi a buzzsaw, 200 Reds felled in the melee. The lunge recoiled by dusk, 2,000 casualties, Habarov radioing Moscow in rage, encircled, annihilation imminent. Stalin's reply, fight or hang. But the thaw drowned hope, meltwater flooding foxholes, trucks sinking hub deep, horses collapsing in traces. Finnish scouts, Hickey among them, glided the flanks at night, Suomis silencing sentries, Molotovs igniting supply dumps in chains of fire. Desertion surged. 1,000 Soviets slipping north by January 15, NKVD squads claiming 300 in executions. The Tokarevs pop a nightly requiem. January 17 brought the massacres crescendo. Koskela's full Motti, 500 Finns converging struck the sacks hard at dawn. Mortars opened. 81 airbursts marching the road, shrapnel reaping like scythes. Yegers pinched east, grenades and bayonets in the slush. Hickey's squad hit a pocket of 500. Soviet 663rd remnants huddled in a birch copse, commissars ranting "Ura," with PPSH drums rattling. The Mosin thundered, 5 kills, bolt a blur. Toivo Suomi emptied 2 drums, 9 hail tumbling the charge. Aino's shot felled a major mid-rally, the White Death's shadow claiming souls unseen. The sack dissolved by noon. Soviets breaking in fragments, commissars shooting deserters, Finns reaping the rout. Habarov fell to a Yeger's bayonet in the melee, his body stripped of pips. Kurachkin, captured with frostbitten hands, begged water before marching south. The toll, 15,000 Reds dead, 8,000 captured, 230 guns and 300 vehicles. Finnish losses, 350. Hickey slumped in the aftermath, the Mosin empty, the slush red underfoot. Bears gutted, he panted to Toivo, the teen nodding, fever broken. The thaw deepened into March. Suomussalmi's victory echoed to the isthmus, Mannerheim trading land for peace at Moscow, March 13. Koskela's men rotated south, skis traded for rifles at Viipuri, the White Death's legend a whisper in the wind. Hickey returned to Lapland's herds, the Mosin on the wall, Toivo to Helsinki's streets, Suomi a memory. The snow melted, revealing the road's toll, a frozen requiem for the bear, Finland's Sisu unbroken. The peace treaty's ink dried on March 13, 1940 in Moscow's halls, Finland ceding 11% of territory, the Mannerheim line's price for survival, but Suomussalmi's ghosts lingered in the taiga's hush. Koskela, promoted to a Versti colonel, briefed Mannerheim at Mikkeli HQ. Matti worked 20-1 kill, minimal loss, trained the army on skis. The marshal, his mustache iron-gray, nodded. Your White Death bought time. The bear sleeps but wakes angry. Siilasvuo penned Talvisodan Taistelut, winter war battles. The Matti canonized. Hickey herded reindeer through Lapland's summer blooms. The Mosins crack a dream in the midnight sun. Toivo apprenticed in Helsinki's forges. Suomi's drum a tale for mates. Aino healed in Oulu's clinics, frostbite scars a badge. The thaw washed the rot clean, bones buried by pines, the road a logging track once more. Finland breathed, the White Death's legacy etched in snow and Sisu, until the bear stirred again in 41. In a quiet Lapland cabin, Hickey recounted to his son, "We were ghosts, Poika, the snow our ally, the cold our blade. The bear roared, but silence won." The boy nodded, eyes wide. The thaw came, but the White Death whispered eternal. The thaw of March 1940 washed the Raate Road clean of its frozen horrors, the snow retreating to reveal a tapestry of brass casings, shattered skis, and the skeletal remains of Soviet lorries rusting in the mud like beached whales. Captain Matti Koskela stood on the ridge of Hill 16 one last time before rotation south, his Mosin nagant slung across his shoulder, the rifle stock scarred from a commissar's bayonet in the final melee. The Matti's legacy was etched in the official tally, 23,000 Soviet dead or captured, 237 guns and 500 vehicles claimed, for 387 Finnish losses, a 60-1 ratio that stunned Helsinki's war rooms and enraged Moscow's Kremlin. Mannerheim, the moose, had pinned the silver medal of the Mannerheim cross on Koskela's tunic in a quiet ceremony at Mikkeli, his voice gravel. "You gave the bear indigestion, Captaini. Finland breathes because of it." But Koskela knew the cost. Toivo's fingers, Hickey's shoulder, the ghosts of boys who'd never see Lapland's midnight sun. Private Heikki Mekkonen Hickey boarded the troop train at Kajani on March 20, the Mosin crated beside him, the Suomi traded for civilian clothes in a Helsinki pawn shop. The Winter War's armistice, ceding 11% of territory to Stalin's friendship. Bitter as wormwood, but Suomussalmi's victory bought time. Finland's army, blooded in the snow, swelled to 530,000 by summer. Hickey returned to his reindeer herd in Inari, the lasses' bells a welcome chime, but the White Death whispered in dreams, the crack of the Mosin, Toivo's fevered gasps. He married a nurse from the field hospital, their son born in 41 with eyes like chipped flint. For the Sisu, Hickey named him, the boy learning to ski before walking. Toivo, the teen survivor, healed in Oulu's wards. Aino, the medic's steady hand saving his life from gangrene's grasp. Discharged with a pension and a limp, Toivo apprenticed in Helsinki's forges, hammering plowshares from Panzer steel imported from the States. The continuation war ignited June 22, 1941, Hitler's Barbarossa pulling Finland into the fray as co-belligerents, 16 divisions retaking lost lands up to the 1939 border. Toivo re-enlisted with JR-27, the Suomi his old friend, patrolling the Karelian Isthmus where Mannerheim's new line held against Timoshenko's hordes. He claimed 20 kills in 42 ambushes, The drums rattle a requiem for the rot, but a KV-1 shell in 43 at Porlampi claimed his leg, Aino's ghost in the surgeons who fitted the peg. Aino himself fought on, the medic's satchel a constant in the continuation's grind. Viipuri retaken in 41, the Siveri River's meat grinder in 44, where 400,000 Finns faced 600,000 Soviets. Frostbite's toll echoed the winter, Aino amputating limbs by lantern in snow caves, sulfa scarce as hope. He earned the Mannerheim Cross in 43 for saving a platoon under fire at Vuosalmi, the citation reading unflinching valor in the White Death's shadow. Wounded in 44's retreat, Lapland scorched under Hitler's Nero decree, Aino mustered out in 45, opening a clinic in Rovaniemi's ruins, healing the war's orphans with calf and stories of the rot. Koskela rose through ranks, Eversti by 41, commanding JR-27 in the continuation's push to Petrozavodsk. The Motti evolved, ski troops encircling Soviet salients at Suursala, Lotties punching T-34s at 500 meters. But Barbarossa's shadow lengthened, Stalin's Ural factories outproducing the Reich, Finland's 500,000 maxing against 1.5 million. Koskela held the Siveri line in 44, his Mosin claiming a commissar at 600 meters during the Vyborg-Petrozavodsk offensive, but the armistice September 4, ceding more land, disarming bittered the Sisu. Demobilized in 45, he farmed in Kuopio, penning Talvisodan Motti Winter War Encirclements, a manual that influenced NATO's guerrilla doctrines. Siilasvuo, the tactician, became Kenrali general in 41, leading the Mosulke sector where Finnish 122 howitzers captured Soviet guns, shelled Leningrad suburbs. His Motti at Suomu in 42 trapped 10,000 Reds, echoing the rot, but the continuation ground to stalemate. Finnish losses 60,000, Soviet 300,000. Surrendering German Lapland army in 44, Siilasvuo oversaw the armistice, his mustache iron as Mannerheim's. Post-war, he governed as President 4651, the rot a cornerstone of national myth. The legacy thought eternal, Suomussalmi's victory, 400 Finns for 27,000 Soviets, shamed Stalin, forcing the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact's rethink. Finland paid dearly, 70,000 dead total, but Sisu endured, the continuation retaking lost lands, the Lapland War scorching Nazi-scorched earth. Hickey's son skied the rot in 50, the road a memorial with white crosses. Toivo's forge built bridges for Europe's heel. The White Death faded, but its echo, ghosts in the pines, whispered. In snow, one man holds the line,